not abandonment of multilateral system, is the path into the future. Let me go back to climate change. The inaugural Africa Climate Summit held in Nairobi in September 2023 resolved, and I quote, to urge world leaders to rally behind the proposal for a global carbon taxation regime, including a carbon tax on fossil fuel trade, maritime transport, and aviation, end of quote. This principle is accepted at the national level and is implemented through carbon taxes, subsidies to green energy, and national emissions trading systems. Yet, we continue to resist taking this to its logical conclusion, that is, having a global carbon taxation regime. However, I take note that recently, in fact earlier last month, the International Maritime Organization adopted a global emissions tax, meaning that this reality is beginning to dawn, that that is the way to the future. Kenya, on the other hand, generates 90% of its electricity from renewables and has enshrined climate adaptation in law. Nairobi is now home to the second headquarters of the Global Center on Adaptation, the first global institution co-located in both the Global North and Global South. I wish to commend China for its leadership in renewable energy technologies, particularly in solar power and electric vehicles. Without China, many of these technologies would remain unaffordable for much of the developing world. Today, solar panels, e-bikes, and electric buses are commonplace in African towns. This is what meaningful South-to-South cooperation should look like. Ladies and gentlemen, as the world's trade system evolves, we must update our assumptions. While the language of international trade is framed on issues of trade between countries, much of trade now occurs within international supply chains of global cooperations. Actual trade flows are captured in export and import data, provide a very limited, maybe even distorted view of international trade. Let me share one perspective. Apple Corporation reported US dollars 391 billion sales in 2024, of which America's contribution of US dollars 167 billion, while the rest of the world contributed 224 billion of that 391 billion. In effect, more than 2/3 of its market is outside the United States. Nike, another example, reported sales of 49 billion US dollars, 21 billion in North America, and 28 billion from the rest of the world. By and large, America's global corporations generate between half and 2/3 of their business abroad. The question we have to ask is, how is this value distributed? When Levi's or Calvin Klein jeans are stitched in Kenya or Cambodia, then sold in China or India, with the profits accruing to the Global North Corporation, which share of the value is global trade and which is not? It's a question I hope some of the students in this university will explore. It stands to reason that when the entire value chain is factored into the trade equation, North America enjoys an even more significant commercial surplus from the global trade than is reflected in the trade figures we are currently working with. Indeed, this is the conclusion reached in a study by the European think tank Center for Economic Policy Research, published in 2024, which was titled Globalization and Profitability of US Firms. Let me quote them, and I quote, "Lower trade barriers allowed North American firms to enter new markets and utilize their intangible assets to boost profitability. Foreign profitability of US firms increased by much more than domestic profitability." End of quote. It is an assignment to all of us as we discuss matters trade to know that the statistics that are available do not give a full picture of what values and what trade we are working with. There is a big difference between numbers of trading goods that is not complemented with numbers trade in services and other intangibles. Kenya's response to these realities is rooted in economic diversification and regional integration. Through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we aim to unlock value chains and markets across our 1.4 billion strong continent. Nairobi, our capital, serves as a UN headquarters in the Global South and as a hub for environment, finance, media, and innovation. We are also a diplomatic hub. Kenya has remained a non-aligned nation committed to peaceful resolution of conflict and sovereignty and mutual respect. We support the One China policy, a two-state solution in the Middle East, and dialogue, not escalation, in the Russia-Ukraine conflict. As we say in Africa, when two bulls fight, the grass suffers. Let us choose understanding over confrontation. Kenya's greatest asset is its people, young, skilled, and entrepreneurial. Over 80% of our population is under 35, and we are building institutions and ecosystems that will harness this demographic advantage through education reform, digital innovation, and youth entrepreneurship. Initiatives like our Silicon Savannah at Concert Technopolis and our Big Five University Research Cluster are also attracting global partnership. Peking University can play a pivotal role in this future. We encourage deeper cooperation through scholarships, artificial intelligence research, innovation labs, and student exchanges. We envision a digital future that is Kenya in location, Africa in identity, and global in impact. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenya and China are not merely trade partners. We are co-architects of a new world order, one that is fair, inclusive, and sustainable. Let us measure our success not in GDP growth or trade volumes, but in how many lives we uplift, how many futures we secure, and how much dignity we restore. This visit, as the first African state visit to China this year, mirrors my 2024 visit to the United States the first African state visit there in 15 years. Perhaps, symbolically, Kenya can serve as a bridge between East and West, North and South, in an era of deepening geopolitical tensions. Let this be our shared legacy that China and Africa, through trust, vision, and partnership, help to build the foundation for a 21st century multilateralism that serves all humanity. I thank you.